So, hi everybody, I'm Anina.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
And here we are at the DLD, and Lisa and I are both models. I'm in China, Lisa's in India,
Bombay. Yeah.
Bombay. And we were just talking actually a little bit about how modeling prepares you to become an entrepreneur.
I think it does. I think something interesting that's happening in the modeling world right now is actually the fact that girls are becoming very aware of the fact that they can also grow their own personal brand. I know for myself, the reason I'm actually here at DLD is because the tie I've done with an e-commerce fashion label, and I actually can't think of a more intelligent thing to do right now than to take the sort of leverage and the power and experience that you get working in a fashion business and actually making it your own.
And as young women, we go out, we have to learn to deal with accounting, we have to deal with agents, we have to meet clients, we have to get the job, get the deal. So all of those are skills that we can later apply to becoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah, entrepreneurial young businesswomen.
Definitely. And I think you were just also talking about India. I was very curious about India. You said there were 2 fashion weeks?
There are, well actually there's about 18 fashion weeks. Everyone's got a fashion week now, pretty much anywhere a commercial giant flexes their muscles and decides to sponsor. But the 2 fashion weeks we do have, there's one in Delhi called Will's Fashion Week, and that's where a lot of the main designers tend to showcase. And the second one in Bombay called Fashion Week, and that's another pretty good fashion week as well. And both have a sufficient amount of international buyers that come through and are very curious about Indian fashion and just watching it grow. And actually something that I've seen in the last couple of years that's really interesting is Indian designers starting to sell internationally and even head up creative houses like Manisha Roy, for example, in Pakistan.
Totally true.
Yeah. So Indian fashion is booming right now. It's interesting.
And I also think it's interesting that, I've heard of some of my friends who are fashion models actually going to India and modeling.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to imagine. But then, is it, I know that blondes don't work there, but you were saying red could work. And, how does the Indian culture feel about these foreign models? How do they integrate them? Are they just sort of like the jewel, or do they play actually some role? Or
they tend to, if a girl comes to India and she does have fair skin and maybe she is blonde, blonde I don't think is as marketable there because it's obviously very inaccessible and slightly unrelatable. Even though, the global and Western world is aspirational for Indians. But I think what works there is like what we were talking about today at the conference is something that they can relate to, which is Indian or has an Indian sentiment to it, something a little bit authentic, which is something borrowed, something global, because that's actually the way they see themselves going. The girls that work there, they all do work. There's a lot of Brazilians, there's a lot of Russians, there's a lot of Eastern Europeans, Americans, and even some Australians that are coming down now. And they all do work well, but if one is an ambitious model and sort of wants to climb the ladder of success, so to speak, or become relevant and that sort of thing, I think it is important that there is some sort of either Indian heritage or an innate understanding of what it means to live in a country like India. To be relatable to the people. Somehow they need to relate to you. I don't really know how you go about doing that. Maybe studying about Indian culture or speaking the language.
Or you could, also in China, for example, a lot of my success came because of having, short red hair and being so special that they wanted to have that one, very international, different feeling in their collection on the runway.
Sure.
Does that exist?
It does exist. There are girls these days that are doing various different things like shaving their hair or dyeing their hair red, for example. Those things tend to stand out as being a cool characteristic of that one particular girl. But I don't think that's as rampant just as yet. Do you know what I'm saying? Or maybe people are not as experimental just as yet because fashion is so new in India.
That's really interesting because in China, it's almost like the trend is the more different you are, the more new, the more non-Chinese, you actually can work for the big brands because they want to relate to this Western culture in a deep way. So that's really funny how in India they still want to keep their heritage very strong.
They're still sentimental, I think. I think they're a bit sentimental Indians about the things that they have and that sort of thing.
And last question, what about your family? Is modeling there viewed as a positive thing, or is it viewed as a frivolous supporters? Were they happy for you? Or?
My family are always happy for me. I mean, my mom's Australian, and we've always grown up. They've always supported everything that I've ever done. And everyone, I've got 7 siblings, 3 brothers and 4 sisters, all from the same 2 parents. And actually, every single one of them is kind of working in a media or entertainment or a creative field. So it's kind of the norm in our family. If we were to end up with a 9-to-5 high-tech job, I think he would be a bit odd. He'd be the black sheep.
Oh, and what about film and fashion? You were saying film and fashion?
Yeah, film is very key actually in carrying forward the sort of style or sensibility of wearing your personality or being independent enough to think for yourself and wear things that are meaningful to you and convey a certain message about what you want people to believe about you. Films in India are changing a lot these days, and I think that they're playing a very, very, very key role in taking fashion stuff forward.
So, watch out. Fashion models are coming. I was the first. Now we have more.
Anina's the supermodel in China.
There we go. So, never underestimate a model.